Hey sewers, welcome to Dart and Sew. In this video, we're sewing the pants and the bustier of Simplicity 9857 with a slight modification to the pants. So let's get started with the pants. Put the two front pieces right sides together and sew at the crotch. And do the same for the back. Then put the front and back pieces together and sew at the side seams like this. Then finish by sewing the inner legs of the pants from the crotch down on both sides or in one swoop. Instead of the elastic, I'm making a regular soft waistband. So try the pants on, and wherever you want it to fall, measure the circumference. I measure mine and I'm tapering the pants to that circumference. Mark and cut after adding the seam allowance like this. I cut a waistband the length and double the width that I want because it's going to be folded over, plus adding seam allowance. So mine is 4 inches wide, so I can have a 1.5 inch wide waistband with 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm quartering it and marking it like this. If you're doing an elastic waistband, follow the pattern instructions. Since I am modifying to a stretchy waistband instead, I'm doing something different here. So I have my right sides touching, matching my center back seams, pinning in quarters with the raw edges together and adding more pins after that. And sew with 1/2 inch seam allowance and flip it up, and it looks like this. It is super comfy and I wear it all the time. Okay, now we're moving on to the bralette. I have all my pieces cut up here. I have the front piece here, double layer, the back piece, which is double layer. I have the straps for the right and left, and then I have the bands that are going to go on the bottom. One is for the front and one is going to be the back. So each piece has a self lining, so the front and the back each have one that's going to be on the outside and one that's going to be on the inside, and we're going to start by sewing them at the side seams. First, I'm going to be working on the outside layer. So I've pinned this together. I'm matching my notches right here and right here. The pieces are not the same width, so you may have to stretch a little when you're pinning. These notches are where the straps are going to be attached later, so make sure they are facing upward. And now we're going to fold the straps lengthwise like this, and we're going to stitch a 3/8 seam allowance. Okay, now that we're done, we're turning them inside out. I'm using a loop turner, which helps out a lot. Then baste the seam allowance on both sides. There's a short end and a long end. The long end is for strap adjustment. Then you're going to take the front like so, and put the right sides together, and there are these dots that you're going to match and stitch them on. These have been basted at the seam allowance. Now you're going to take the lining piece, which is identical to the main piece. You're going to put the pieces right sides together again, like so. Make sure the notches are pointing up, and you're going to pin at the side seams, taking note that the lengths are not the same, so you may have to pull a little bit. Now the side seams have been completed. There's an opening that is 3 inches wide on the left side, as the instruction says. This opening is only on the lining. So we're going to slip the lining on top of the main bodice, right sides touching. We're going to be matching the raw edges of the straps like so. We are pinning the strap inside. It's sandwiched between the two layers. And don't forget to match your notches on the bottom. There's one notch right here. Here's another notch right here I'm pinning. Here's another pair of notches. So we're going to be sewing all around the raw edges on the front neck, on the back neck, going over the straps and all the way to the other side. So it's going to be the front neckline, the armhole, the back neckline, and the other armhole. So let's take this to the machine and sew all around. But on the back, you're not sewing all the way across because there are two notches that are supposed to be the openings where the strap is going to be looped in. So be sure to leave those two openings in the back. So I'm starting here at the straps. I'm going to go straight across the straps, and after going a little bit past the straps, I'm going to pivot and go to the right of it and stitch down the armhole. And you want to make sure you don't catch the strap on the side. You are making like an upside down U across the strap, but you're only catching the end of the strap, not the sides. So I'm trimming the excess around the strap so that it's not bulky when we flip it out. Clipping the corners. So the finished result looks like this, and the strap looks like this on the wrong side. So when you flip it out, this is how it's supposed to look. So now we're going to edge stitch this, and the seam allowance is going to go towards the wrong side. And we're going to do it all around the top again. So you can open the seam flat like this and get on the lining side and get as close to the seam line as possible. A different presser foot might be helpful if you have a big one. The seam allowance is pushed to the side towards the lining. Just like before, we're going to look out for the two dots on the back. Those are going to be remaining open so the straps can be slipped through them later. So sew up to the dot and backstitch, and then start sewing again after the second dot. The edge stitching is going to look like this when you are done. It's very close to the seam line, as you can see. When you get closer to the straps, you're not going to be able to go all the way to the tip of the straps. So keep going as far as you can until you can't get the fabric to lay flat anymore, and then backstitch and stop. The understitching helps the seam lay flat, as you can see. So it goes on the inside, flip it over, and press like this. So these are the two pieces that make up the bottom band. One is the front and one is the back. We're going to attach them at the side seams like so, but you're going to leave a 1-inch opening on one side so that you could use it to thread the elastic through. Here's our 1-inch opening. Once you sew the side seams together, you're going to press the seams open. Then fold over like this, matching the seams. Repeat the same on the opposite side. And we're gonna baste on the raw edges so it doesn't stretch. And we're gonna do that on the bodice as well. We're gonna match the notches before you baste. And the opening that we left goes on the left side. And we're going to slip it on like so with the raw edges touching. Matching the seams, matching the notches. Here's a notch. Here's another notch. And another notch. Last but not least, I think this is the last notch. Definitely match the side seams. And there you go. You're going to have to stretch this because this is longer. So once we sew it at the 5/8 inch seam allowance, we're going to go back and sew at 1/4 inch seam allowance inside the seam allowance. And that will be our trim line. Now we're going to press by pushing the seam allowance towards the top. Okay, now it's time to thread the elastic. We're going to find the opening. There it is. And measure the elastic and prepare to thread it through. Thread it, keeping the elastic as straight as you can so it does not twist. Once you thread it through, you're going to attach it like this. You can hand stitch it or machine stitch it. So I'm going to close the opening with a thread and needle. So I'm just going to use a whip stitch for this. So this is a good time to try on the top and to decide how much of the strap needs to be tucked in the back before it is stitched in place. It looks like I'm going to be tucking in my straps about 1/4 inch. So you're going to put the strap in, flip it inside out, and you're going to stitch it from the inside. Tuck it in and pin in place. Make sure the straps don't twist when you put them in. So that side opening is how we get in and access the tip of that strap, and we're stitching it on the inside so you don't see it on the outside. Before closing the side seam opening, they tell you to understitch the back lining with the seam allowance towards the back, so do that before you close the opening. So to do the understitching, go through this hole and stretch it like this. Stitch on the lining side a 1/16 inch away from the seam. And once the straps are done, you can close the side opening. After trimming the excess seam allowance and after closing the opening, you are done. I think this is a great pattern to also make a sports bra. If you want to make a longer tank top, check out my other tutorial. As always, thank you for watching, and until next time, happy sewing!